Sure. Dane, thank you very much, man. Got to spend some time with Dane. I mean, we know each other for a couple of years, but at the 2016 games, had some lunches and some good, well, I don't know if they all were good, but some nice discussions. I mean, sharing both of our events that we took part in 2016. But yeah, morning, everyone. It's a privilege to be with you. Rowan, the worst thing you could do, you spoke about the perfectionist and the feathers that were going to be ruffled. But so on Tuesday night, so I packed my stuff. It's been a hectic couple of weeks for me at home. I packed my stuff, and Wednesday I go to the office, a couple of meetings, and Wednesday I fly off. And yesterday evening I'm sitting in the guest house and I'm phoning my wife, and I said, "Shucks, I didn't take my blazer, I didn't take my suit. I don't know what type of conference it is." And the worst thing you could do is to put Linda up before me, standing here with his suit, like properly dressed, feeling, oh, what, that's what I should have had here. Anyway, yeah, exactly. I have to make it work. But anyway, it's an honor to be here and just to share, a bit of my life story with you guys and what God has done in my life. And if you can give me just a minute to just close our eyes and pray. God, we thank you for this opportunity just to honor your name, Lord. I pray that you will open up hearts, Lord, for what you want to instill in our lives today. And please use me as a vessel for your kingdom and your honor. Amen. So the topic of my life story today is facing life's challenges head on. So, I'll go through a couple of, and most of the times, or maybe there was a time in my life that I feel there was a big challenge when I lost my leg. I'll get to that a bit later. And then, through grace and decisions and courage, got through it. But standing here 15 years later, conquering the fact that I lost my leg was just one of it. And that is, I'm only 33, so it's only given me the peace of mind that won't be the only times, that there will be more, that God will test my character, that I will have to show courage in a couple of things. But firstly, before I even get into the message, so a couple of weeks ago, one sent me an email and he invites me to come and speak to you guys, and we off to Japan, me and my wife for about 10 days or so. And this one day we were spending time with kids. We had a running clinic where we spent time with a couple of disabled and able-bodied kids, where we do a couple of running things. But actually the biggest thing is just to give them hope, to spend time with them and show them what I'm still able to do after losing my leg, and just encourage them a bit. And this one guy, he came, I saw him standing in the corner. So there was a bookshelf and then the wall, and he was just facing the bookshelf and the wall. He didn't want to turn around. I walked up to him and I knocked on his back, tried to speak to him, but obviously, it's pretty difficult because he's Japanese. So whichever way I could find to get him to turn around and just speak with me. His mom came later when she saw that I couldn't break through to this kid. She said, she just apologizes and said he had a rough day at school that morning. She didn't know what happened, but he had a tough day at school that morning, and he's still dealing with whatever it was. After a couple of minutes, we could get him to turn around. His mom got him to turn around, and we took this picture. And that night, I was lying in bed and still wrestling with the fact that, especially us as Afrikaners, white Afrikaners, we struggle to use stuff in our own lives to say, I've shown courage. Even for me, it's easier to just share my life story, but to put a topic on this, to say, put courage on it, and where this is the places where I've actually, showed courage, is sometimes difficult for us to carry over. So I was sitting there and said, this is what I'll share about. That kid, still the next morning, having to put his legs back on. He said, as you'll see, he's a double amputee. Also, his arms is not normal as well, so they call it crab hands. Just have the two fingers on both his arms. So it was at birth. He had a defect at birth. And so I said, that's what I will share, that kid having to go back the next day. And, all of us have different things. So I don't want, he's just an example that counted as motivation for me of like the message that I want to bring across today. So whatever it is for you, I mean, as I said, all of us have things, and the moment we see it in each other, the moment we see even the small things that we in our own lives need to show courage. The easy part is like the David and Goliath, the big, like the stories in the Bible where like you see courage of someone killing people or being a good, like a brave hero. The stuff that we don't see that often is the things of that kid having to, and everyone has that. Everyone has whatever you're dealing with in life, needing to conquer the next day, to go on with life, to even in business or even in your family life, even whatever it is, showing the courage tomorrow to say, I'll take it on again. I'll start over this morning again. So just to give you some background regarding my, so I grew up in United States of the Free State, and passionate about sports. I mean, as a 6-year-old growing up, and I remember telling my parents, one day you'll see me on TV as well, hoping and praying that will be through sport. But towards the end of my high school career, it was rugby, mostly rugby. I was in a school in Bloemfontein that's famous for its rugby and a lot of effort and emphasis on the rugby. So, especially 18 years old, in my matric end exams, I thought the next year, studying was going to be part of it. I knew I had to study, but rugby, that was it. And then I had, I said 3 exams. We wrote 3 exams, and then I had like a 10 days or so break where we went out to a dam near Bloemfontein, me and 3 of my mates, just for the day to spend some time there, come back, had like a break of the studies. And so we just got there, got the wetsuits on, jumped into the water. So me and one of my other friends were kneeboarding behind the boat. And they made a turn to come and, like, so I fell from the kneeboards. There was 2 guys on the boat and one still on the kneeboard. So they made a turn to come and get me. Those of you who's familiar with water skiing, I mean, make a turn so the rope can obviously catch you again and get back on the kneeboard. So what they didn't realize that they were so close to me and they were still making fun of the guy that was on the kneeboard behind the boat, and the boat just went straight over me. So I saw the boat coming, but I mean, they're coming obviously to just pick me up. The propeller caught my foot and it amputated, or the doctors had to amputate my foot later on that day in hospital. And immediately, I mean, obviously, contact sports, a couple of other things that you know, even driving to hospital, telling my friends that I know I won't be able to play rugby anymore now, I can go to Stellenbosch. I always wanted to go to Stellenbosch, but because, I mean, going to Arnu at that time, or Lions, was the best opportunity I got through the rugby. I was going to study and play rugby there, and then later on, hopefully go back to, so I was telling them going to Stellenbosch, the contact sport. The guy that was there at the dam, even, he said, well, he's going to try and find whatever he can find, the doctors to fix, but I mean, there was no fixing it. Doctors amputated my left leg, just below the knee. And so just success is not final, failure is not fatal, it's the courage to continue that counts. And as I said earlier, maybe that's one of the things I'll focus on is obviously the accident, and I had to deal through a couple of things there, but it's an ongoing thing. And it's for our benefit, actually dealing with these things. Maybe not all of us, to the extent that those things happen, but that have formed who I am today. Not knowing it then, not knowing it in 2003, that there's purpose beyond it, definitely not. I'm a positive, optimistic guy even then. But, you deal with it because you've made rugby such a big thing in your life, because you've built so much around it, you don't realize it. Because you've put so much value in that, it feels there's nothing left. Nothing left when that's taken away. And you only realize at the moment it's taken away that I've put so much emphasis on it. A couple of things the fact that I was disabled. I think the sport has helped people's view of disabilities, definitely a bit. If I look back 15 years ago when I lost my leg, how I pursued disabilities and being disabled was quite difficult to see myself in that position as now being disabled. And so I told people I'll never compete in the sport. I won't take part in any disabled sports. I just want to get back into normal life. I started with physio and rehab, got a leg, trying to walk. Today, people tell me, yes, we don't see you have a leg. I said, yeah, because in my first year, after I lost my leg, I didn't want anyone to see that I have a prosthetic leg. I was wearing long pants, and I spent so much time in rehab making sure that I actually have a proper gait, that I walk properly, that people don't see it. Because we don't want to show. I mean, those obviously the things that I feel that I've lost, having to share if someone asks about the leg, definitely not. And I emphasize a little bit on that, definitely not to feel sorry for me in any way, but to just share that those are the places you're at. It's not that I'm standing here today and it was easy or any different from me than it's for anyone dealing with their things. We all deal exactly the same way. And it wasn't me standing up and say, okay, and one day I'll take this on, I'll conquer, I have courage through God who strengthens me, and it's day by day, making decisions to actually get back into it. And I remember one night lying in my bed in res and saying, God, like it was 6 months or so after the accident, maybe less. God, I have nothing to bring to you. So we feel we need to bring something to him. I feel I had the rugby, the talents to give to him to do something. So stupid because he gave it to me freely. But that's how I felt. And I woke up and I said, God, I have nothing now to give to you. And I just felt God sharing Jeremiah 29:11 with me, and I have good plans for you. And as I said, it's not that I woke up the next morning and had a David and Goliath moment where I took on life, but there was a moment that God said that he's enough. He doesn't need any of it. It's freely given to me in any way, the talents and the stuff that he gave to me. 4 years later, or that was 2003, 5 years later, of constant, day by day, dealing with a couple of things in life. And the next day, waking up and dealing with the same thing. I remember in res, as I said earlier, some days I'll wear shorts. I walk out of res like 100 or 150 meters, and then 5 people would look at it in that place and like, go back, get my shorts, knowing that even though people would say next to me that he's dealt with it, he's going on regionally, I know that I haven't dealt with it. And so 5 years later, I had the opportunity I got back into athletics because the contact sport could not play any role in my life anymore. I had to find a way to get back into sports. I'm so passionate about it, and that's the mandate that God has put on my life, even though I didn't knew it back then. And so the athletics was the one then that, I think initially it was just the fact of getting a break from the athletics, from the studying accounting werk in Stellenbosch, and every now and then just break away, get onto the track and just run a bit, slowly but surely getting better at it, and realizing that one night in Belleville, I ran a 100-meter race with my normal. So you have a blade. I don't know if it's later on in one of the, or you obviously watched the 200-meter race that they showed there. So your running blade that you run, and then your normal walking leg that you walk with. So I had to use my normal walking leg back then just to run my first 100-meter in an able-body race, losing by about 40 meters or so. It is only 100 meters long. So, and I remember people afterwards like tapping me on the back and say, don't worry, man, you're doing well. Just keep on going. And it was the worst thing anyone could say to me, is feel sorry for me or trying to obviously they were trying to encourage you. But in a way, I was like walking that evening, going back and telling my wife, there's no way that I want to experience that again. Either I need to leave the sport, or I need to make sure that this doesn't keep happening, that I lose races by 40 meters. Needless to say, as I said, the day by day, making decisions, get back into the sport, being disciplined and fighting through, initially just running, getting used to the blade. 5 years later, I had the privilege in 2008, to qualify for the Beijing Games. And an honor, firstly, just to represent your country and at the highest level in our sport, which I could go to. So I think that was like the biggest thing for me in 2008, just being happy to achieve again. Walking into the bird's nest. I don't know if you guys remember in Beijing, the bird's nest. And that's just a picture. It's a bit dark now of the South African team walking in the opening ceremony, walking around one of the corners, walking into the 100-meter straight. And I remember walking there, and like the tears started to run down my face. Firstly, your heart pounds because you need to come and run here in front of 90,000 people in a couple of days. But the biggest thing was, it was running because God showed up and he said, this is it. This is not plan B. This is not plan C. This is not something we're settling for. this is what I have in store for you. This is plan A for you. And for me, that's the biggest thing I took out of Beijing. I mean, I won't focus, there's one in London, I'll focus on one of the achievements, but today is not sharing my achievements with you at all. It's sharing where God showed up in my life during this 15 years after I've lost my accident, and what He's done since for me being able to stand here and actually freely serve Him and finding purpose in who I am. And that's one of the most significant times in my life, walking down there and just experiencing, that's it. This is it. 5 years later, people would have said before that Arnu he's going on, he's living a positive life again. But in that moment, realizing it in my heart, that this is it. This is his plan A. Fast forward 4 years again. Normally you'll find from this, as an athlete, you live in 4-year cycles. It's like everything goes from one big games to the next one Olympic or Paralympic games to the next one. All of it, your family, your friends, everyone that is part of your bigger group of family is involved in that 4-year cycles. So most of my focus will be sharing not to on much of the detail in between, but on that. So fast forward 4 years later, and it's London 2012, and so 4 years later, I'm a bit more experienced athlete. I'm going into the games with a different mindset now. It's not the case of just being happy to represent your country and able to, now you have an expectation to actually, and obviously a bit of pressure as well, to do well. And I ran the 100, 200, and the 4x1 relay, but the only one I'd like to put any emphasis on is the 4x1 relay. That as a kid, as a 6-year-old, I can't remember till when you put posters on and you have dreams of looking at rugby players or other guys. But if I didn't really have ones on my wall, but if there would have been anything, it would have been the 22 guys, the Springbok rugby team, standing and singing the national anthem. Or the Zulu guy running in front, the Impi song, all of that. So that would have been the thing for me growing up. What I dreamed of experiencing one day. 2012, it's, 9 years after the accident. We had the privilege that night to win the 4x1, running a perfect race that evening, winning the 4x1 relay, walking onto the podium and singing the national anthem with 3 other guys in a much different way than I've imagined it as a young kid, but wouldn't change it for anything in the world. What's shared and what God has instilled. And as I said, I want to focus too much, and there's actually the story of Rio that I want to share and put some emphasis on more than the others, because these are gifts. These are blessings and gifts that God gives us. There's no promise in the fact that for a long time, my testimony was the fact that I lost my leg and I could achieve medals again. Those are earthly things, and sometimes God blesses us with those things. Our business goes through really good times, and making money that we'll never make in our lives again. Those are fortunate, and I almost feel it like in Mario Brothers, those bonus rounds that we sometimes experience. But there's no promise for that to say it will go to that extent. But the fact that it says that He is enough, and that what He does through all of those things, those are the things it's only a year after I finished. And the medals is in the cupboard. There was times that people asked for it when they came to visit. Now people want to spend time with you. It's not forgotten, but those are earthly things that only last for a long time, for a very short time, those moments. I want to, as I said, focus on more my journey, which I had the privilege of sharing with Dane. We were both at the games in 2016, and my lead up to the 2016 games was a totally different lead up to anything else. The 4 years of 2 of those years having injuries, being operated on, in the 2016 season in itself, going through a season of really dealing with a couple of things in my life, which one was pride. So I was struggling to the extent that as an athlete, you would never think 10 years being a professional athlete, struggling to get out of the blocks. Struggling with an easy thing as to when the gun goes off, react to that in a way that you've done for 10 years. Even struggling with those things in 2016. Going through a whole, almost like a battle with God and saying, God, where am I missing it? I'm actually 10 years later, we've achieved some success through this. Like, what am I valuing, or what is my focus on that I don't find joy? 10 years into my career and sharing so many highlights with you guys. I had to go back in my 2016 season, send some emails to a couple of people that's around me, saying sorry for being prideful, saying sorry for what the sport has done in 10 years. Like, not really I don't think I was like really to the extent of like arrogant, but there's stuff that came into my life that I needed to repent of, needed to get rid of. And those are the things that I'd like to, as I said, share. There's no need to be ashamed of tears, for tears bears witness that a man has the greatest of courage, the courage to suffer. And suffer not in a way that we're not getting through life, we losing out on, we like every day can't find our feet to even get up the next day. Suffering means going into that place of, God, what is it that you need me to get rid of? Because it always comes with suffering, always with giving up. It comes with giving up something. To say, Lord, you're not first. There's areas in my life that I don't experience joy. Which are those areas? And it takes courage to go into them. For me to go back to people that actually I feel it has wrongly been acted towards me, going back and saying sorry for stuff that I've done. So this is my 2016 season leading up to Rio. And getting rid of a couple of these things and taking so much expectation into Rio. Because of the build-up that you've had, when you get like when you're freed of a couple of these things, the expectation that God creates in your heart, taking that into Rio, to the 2016 games, and the 100 meter was like the second day we were up. Blade runners were up in the 100 meters, and it's just some images of. I think it's this one. No reason that. I was feeling good. I was in good shape 2 weeks before the event. I was running the best times of my life, and we had the heats. The first evening of the games, we had the heats. I actually felt good. Came through the heats good. Second day came into the final, and as I came out of the blocks, 30, 40, 50, 60, it never felt that I got into my running. I never got into a place where I'm comfortable, any of you that's involved in sport or sprinting or so, it feels difficult sometimes to say, as an athlete, how can you not? It's just getting out and run, to get to the finish line. But sometimes you obviously go through a purple patch in your career where things just come together, and I feel that I was there. It just didn't come together. I finished crossed the finish line in fourth. So there's been times that I've finished fourth before, many times. In every games, I actually had one event that I finished in fourth, a couple of world championships also. So I feel that I've dealt with the fact that I came fourth. That wasn't the biggest thing. But none of them hurt as much as this one did in Beijing. Finishing fourth with my expectation levels so high. My expectation levels so high, not because of the fact of just winning medals, taking something back. Because as I said, I felt that I've dealt with the fact that finishing fourth and that medals was not the only thing. But God, how allow running an average race, not for 4 years, working for the last 10 years of my life, and finishing an average race. I'm better than that. I didn't run the best race I'm able to in that. And that I was struggling to deal with. I was finishing, and what I had left, I took one of the American guy, that's one of my good friends, Jared Wallace. I grabbed him around his shoulders. I said, we praise God whether we win or lose. He came fifth. He was the favorite for that race. Won most of the races leading up to it. He finished even behind me fifth, and I finished fourth. I grabbed him. I said, and it didn't come out of a place of like it's like whatever I had left, saying to him, man, I don't know where to find it, but praise him whether we win or whether we lose. Walked off. I told my coach that I need some time away with the family. Normally, when you're in the village with a team, you stay there until the champs are finished. I asked the team manager, my coach, please just give me some time. I need some time with the family. I left. My wife was there. I left with them, stayed the night with them. That next morning, I woke up, and I was like wanting to get to the end of the bed and pray a simple prayer of like the song that we sang earlier of God, you're a good, good Father. And I was struggling to get it out. I was struggling to get it out of my, that's how I felt. I was struggling to get it out of my mouth to say, God, you're a good, good Father. And I remember that our physio was also staying there. She walked in wanting to bring us coffee. And we were crying the night. And it's like she walked in, I think she was feeling not again the next morning having to deal. And why I'm sharing this with you guys, as I said, is wanting to share those moments that we go through those as well. It's not just a case of losing my leg and then achieving stuff. I mean, it's life. There's every day. And that's the circle of the stuff that you go through. And as I said, it's not the last. I'm ready for whatever is next, for God to build and for me to show courage to a next level. So dealing with a couple of, as I said, a couple of things that next morning, and almost in a sense feeling, I tried to articulate like, why, Lord? Like I felt that through this whole season of 4 years leading up, it was a case of me like patching all of the stuff that I had, like patching it, Lord, and patching. I'm good. I'm a perfectionist, like Arnu said earlier. Patching, and when I went through stuff in my life, feeling that I've sorted it out, it's like almost this vase of like, okay, whatever we need to put together, get some duct tape and sort this thing out. I'm good. This is a good, optimistic guy, and I feel that I'm good at sorting stuff out, and even sometimes in my own life, figuring stuff out and getting the duct tape out and getting this thing to look as good as I could make it look. And in Beijing, I tried, in Rio, I said, God, but it felt like I was climbing the ladder. Because of all these stuff in the lead up to the games, like this expectation, I was like a little kid climbing the ladder, and like my dad standing at the bottom and saying, no, one more. Going up, and then I jumped, but I fell through. I wasn't caught. Well, that's how I felt. So I dealt with. And I said, God, that's how I feel. I know it's not the case. I'm just being real, that's how I feel. And even only a couple of weeks later, when I came back to and spent time with some of my friends and people that speak into my life, it would come up through discussions with them that the Lord shared with me that how else could I actually make something brand new with what you've taken and actually duct tape for a long time in your life. The only way that I could fix it and make it brand new, I'd like to make it, was to break it completely. Yes, that what you experienced was actually maybe what happened. It fell through. It's the only way I could break it completely and say, you know what, whatever you tried to do, whatever you tried to fix in your own life, whatever things you go through, God is better at doing that than us. So yeah, we need courage to take it on. We need courage each day to make the right decision, to say, Lord, you're in control. I don't experience it maybe. It's not emotions that I feel at the moment, but the word says that you're in control. Lord, the word says you have good plans for me. That's what I hold on to today. It's the only thing I have to hold on to, because I don't feel it maybe. But that's what it says. And I leave you with one last quote as my time runs out here. That the biggest thing that I've taken out of, as I said, out of Rio, is that God came to a point, as He's done earlier in my life, that He says, you know what, whatever the focus was on, I am enough for whatever need is in your life. All of the moments that we show courage, all of those times that we go through actually just help us to turn to God. It helps our hearts to align with His heart. All the times that we deal with the day-to-day, not the woo-ha, as I said, David and Goliath moments, but moments like these where we say God doesn't simply command courage with no reason behind it. In nearly every incident where God says, fear not, there follows a reason to have courage. And that reason is God Himself, His nature, and His perfect plans.